Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Just a little quick video here just to show you inside the bottom of an engine when you take the sump off. And this is the strainer on the bottom of the oil pickup, and this block is pretty clean and tidy inside, as you can see. I always take the sump off anything that comes in here that I've never seen before for the price of a gasket. I take that strainer out and clean it. It's just held in by a little wire retaining clip that you can see there, and that just gives me some presence of mind for something that I'll just show you in a minute. So this is the sump off the same bike. This bike has been sitting for quite some time, and when I took it out, my heart's always in my throat when I take one of these out that's been hanging around for a while, particularly from this vintage. This is a 1981 model, and what you can see there is that when a bike or any engine sits around for a long time, the sediment that's floating around in the oil will gradually make its way down to the bottom. And even when you start the engine, you can see there's a kind of a clear spot there right where the oil pickup was. Most of that sediment is sitting in the back. I'm going to stick my finger in this, which has got a fair bit of yuck value, but anyway, it's about 1/4 of an inch thick in there. It's real heavy, solid crap. But that's the way the sump's designed. It's all run down to the back. The best thing about it though is that there is no little metal pin lying in there, and that metal pin falls out of the main bearing carrier at the front of the engine, and that is when some real grief happens. Doesn't happen all the time. Sometimes it doesn't happen at all. Sometimes it doesn't happen instantly. But if that main bearing shell turns inside the carrier because that little roll pin has fallen out, a little locating pin, for some reason BMW lost its sensors at some time, and they stopped pining that pin in by deforming the carrier, and they started gluing it in with Loctite. And I've lost count of how many times we've taken a sump off a bike or somebody else that I know has and found that pin in the bottom. One fellow in particular didn't realise that it had fallen out, and the bearing did rotate and shut off the oil supply to the rest of the engine pretty much. And I have got some photos on my laptop at home, so when I put this post up, I'll share those photos back onto the thing, and you can see what happens in a worst case scenario when that pin falls out and the main bearing carrier turns. So for the price of a sump gasket, they're just 10mm bolts. If you're doing maintenance at home and you haven't done it for a long time, pop the sump off, clean the gasket up, put a new gasket on, and clean out the sump, clean out the strainer, and more importantly, have a look for that little roll pin and make sure it's not there. That's all for now.